Are you considering a move to southern Utah County? One of the biggest towns down in this area is Payson, Utah. Payson is getting a lot of attention of people thinking about moving here. So today I'm going to go over some of the cons of living in Payson, Utah, and some of the pros. So let's start with some of the cons. First of all, job opportunities. There's not a lot of employment down here. Most people that are living down in this area are commuting up to the Provo area, or even some up into Salt Lake County. From Payson to Provo, you're probably about a 30-minute drive door to door from your house to your work. That's with normal drive times, normal commute times. In the winter, or during rush hour, if there's an accident, drive times could go up a little bit more than 30 minutes. Now, for a lot of people that are moving here from out of state and coming from other big cities, you know, a 30-minute drive time seems awesome. But for us here in Utah, 30 minutes is usually pushing the limits of what we want to have in a commute time. So we've got a little bit longer commute times. That's probably one of the biggest cons that we have. The second thing, and this is something that when my wife and I were building a home out here, we really joked around about, we thought it was kind of funny. Now that we're here, it really is a con. And I've talked to other people and they agree. There are not a lot of great restaurants to eat at down here. There's a few places that we kind of like. There's Maggleby's in Springville, about a 20-minute drive away. There's a little Indian place in Payson called Todka that I like. My wife doesn't care for it as much. She would rather drive into Provo about a half an hour and go to Bombay House. Other than that, I mean, you're kind of looking at like Olive Garden in Spanish Fork. Nice restaurant, but not by any means, you know, like a high-end restaurant. There's a Texas Roadhouse in Spanish Fork, again, about 20 minutes away. When my wife and I were building a house, we were driving out to our land, and there's this little Beto's, which is a small Mexican, kind of fast food Mexican restaurant. And we always used to joke around saying, you know, when we move out here, this is going to be our date every Friday night. And then we got out here, and we were kind of like, oh my gosh, like, Beto's is one of the only places. That's one of the cons of living in Payson, Utah, is if you're looking for higher fine dining, you're probably about 45 minutes to an hour south of where you're going to need to go to find those. Which kind of brings me to the third con of living in Payson, and that's just commute times. We flew out of town and went out of the Salt Lake Airport. About an hour drive for us to the Salt Lake Airport. That was not during rush hour time. That was kind of an earlier morning pre-rush hour. There is a good airport in Provo that's about 30-35 minutes away, but there's limited flights out of there. The airlines that are currently flying out of Provo do weird schedules, like you can fly out on a Monday and you can only fly back on a Thursday, and they don't have any Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday type flights. So commute travel times, distances to airport, distance to work. Medical, we're getting some good medical options out here. There's a good hospital, Mountain View Hospital. Revere Health has a lot of practitioners out here. In fact, when we lived in central Utah County, often for sports, physical therapy, injury, things like that, we would come down to the Payson area. So medical options are good down here, but other things, you may have a little bit longer commute. We're about an hour south of Salt Lake City, about a half hour south of Provo, about an hour and a half south of Ogden. The fourth con that I've heard people bring up, actually I just mentioned it in distances from major cities, but is healthcare. So if you have specialty healthcare, you may want to look around and see what's available down here in the Payson area. If you have children or special needs, or if you're looking for a VA clinic, the closest VA clinic, you're going to be driving about 35 minutes up it to Orem. If you're looking for any treatment that has to happen at a primary children's hospital, right now you're about an hour and 20 minutes away from the University of Utah campus. Primary children's, although they are building one further south that will put you about 35-40 minutes away. They're going to build one in central Utah County, but that's going to be a little ways down the road. So depending on your healthcare needs, that could be a con of living here, and that's definitely something that you'll want to check out. The next would be the entertainment down in the area. And for some people, this is an excellent place for entertainment. For other people, it's not quite what they're looking for. This one's a 50-50 to me. If you're looking for nightclubs, if you're looking for theater performances, if you're looking for plays, operas, orchestra performances, you're probably a good 35 minutes to an hour away from meaningful entertainment like that. However, I consider hiking and mountain biking and kayaking and stand-up paddle and all of those types of things. For me, that's the entertainment that I like. And I'll talk about this in the pros of living out here, but this is a beautiful open area where outdoor entertainment is actually a really big pro of living here. The next one I want to talk about is the harsh winters. So when we lived up in central Utah County, if the weatherman said we have a 65% chance of snow, my kids were always disappointed because we didn't get any, or we got like a quarter of an inch that melted off by the afternoon. Out where we're at in Payson, kind of up on a hill, I mean, we had a 4-foot pile of snow that we had plowed off of our driveway out to the edges of our driveway. There was a lot more weather out here than what we ever saw up in central Utah County. And I've been told it's because of how the mountains run and where the weather patterns come in and stuff. I don't know. It doesn't seem like 30 minutes away should make a big weather difference. But when we have a slight chance of rain out here, we're getting rain. When we have a slight chance of snow, we're getting snow. There's a lot of wind depending on where you're at. If you're out in one of the more open rural areas of Payson, boy, you're going to have some wind. If you're commuting a lot, if you don't like wind, if you don't like snow, maybe there's some other places you can look at, although we are in Utah. You're going to get snow wherever you're at in the winter. And for me, I mean, my kids actually see that as a plus. Okay, next on the list is water. Now, I don't know where we're going to be 15 or 20 years from now, but I hear everybody that's out here that's on a well is concerned. Now, most of where you would be moving to, probably 99.9% of people watching this video, you're going to be on city water. And the cities are working to acquire water rights and build up their reservoirs of water, and they're being very careful with water availability. But I have heard people say there are some concerns with water out in this area. Now, for me, I grew up in Las Vegas. A lot of people that I'm talking to are relocating from California, and what Payson considers to be a water issue, it's like an oasis for those of us that are coming from the West Coast over to Utah. But it's something to think about. Water's not extremely cheap. We're very careful and conscientious with our water use here just for a conservation standpoint, but I'll have in the middle of summer when I'm heavily watering landscaping, we'll have a $300 or $400 water bill. Now, I live on 2.5 acres and might have more landscaping than what you're looking at, but water's a little bit more expensive here. And then I probably should throw in one more for people who are big public transportation. There is not a lot of good public transportation down in Payson, Utah. The Front Runner train basically stops in Provo right now, and that can get you all the way up into Salt Lake and north of Salt Lake into the airport and things like that. From down here, there's pretty much one bus. I mean, there's different routes and things, but you're pretty much going to take a bus from here to a central station in the Provo area and connect from there. Okay, so let's talk about the pros of living out in Payson, Utah. So for the last 20 years, I lived in central Utah County, actually 21 years. And we recently, about a year and a half ago, moved down to the Payson area. And there is a lot that I love out here that I'm excited to share with you. And if you like an outdoor lifestyle, if you like a slower paced life, if you want larger lots and more larger parks and trail systems and things, this could be a really great area for you. My first three are going to be the outdoor quality of life. The scenic beauty out here is phenomenal. We are surrounded by stunning natural landscapes, big mountains, mountains. You get the beautiful light greens and blossoms in the spring. There are absolutely amazing, vibrant fall colors that happen in the fall. Some of the best hiking in Utah that I can tell you about, but the scenic beauty is absolutely amazing. We love driving the Nebo Scenic Loop. You can pull up this area on all trails and look at some of the hikes and mountain bike trails. There's lots of reservoirs up in the mountains where people will do stand-up paddle and kayaking. So beautiful, beautiful scenic outdoor areas. And that ties in the next one, which is outdoor recreation. And I've kind of mentioned a lot of those things already. This is just a beautiful area for outdoor enjoyment, which also ties into a lot of the cities in the area. Especially Payson has some amazing outdoor sports parks, community centers, and picnic areas and things like that. We have huge soccer complexes, softball and baseball complexes, big spans of pickleball courts, lots of parks with mature trees where they will do food truck events and outdoor theater events and things like that. So the scenic beauty and the outdoor recreation in this area, for me, are some of the biggest pros. Probably number 3 on my list is that this is a very safe community. It's known for low crime rates. You can look up any sites that report on crime and incidents and things like that. Payson, Utah is very low on those lists, so that is definitely a plus. Number 4 on my list is kind of this small town charm. Now, don't get me wrong on that, because before we moved out here, to me, that was a con. I like living in an area that's less crowded and less congested, but I need to be able to do my shopping and hit up the super Target or the super Walmart, or I want to be able to send packages out through UPS and things like that. And Payson has all of that, but a lot of the houses are older and restored, and there's walkable areas in the city and the downtown Main Street and kind of this small town charm. Often my wife and I will go and just go for a walk on a Friday night through, these areas and find a quaint little restaurant, little mom and pop type shops and things. It's a pretty fun area, and the community events that come along with that, there's rodeos and there's different pageants. There's the Irish days that Payson does, and just fun things that you won't find in a lot of bigger cities. Okay, now for the next couple that a lot of people are interested in as you're looking at real estate and considering a move. Housing affordability is definitely better in Payson. You can get a larger house on a larger lot that's newer for a lot less money than what you would be paying in Provo or Lehigh or American Fork. So housing costs are definitely lower out here. Schools are also very good. If you look up great schools or things, we have some very high quality public, charter and private schools out in the area. And if you're not from Utah and you're not familiar with what a charter school is, it's basically a public school that receives its own charter to govern itself with its own school board. So you're still a public school, but it's a smaller school board. And we've got some great charter schools out here too. While we're on the real estate topic, there are also a lot of great active 55 plus communities out in this area. And there's some assisted living communities as well. But if you're considering or looking for a low maintenance, active 55 plus, there's some great options out in this area as well. Now on the cons, one of the things that I talked about was the distance from large employment or large metropolitan areas. One of the pros for living in the Payson area is you get this kind of small town feeling, but you're only about 30 minutes away from Provo, which is a large economic and employment and educational center. So I'm going to throw that in here on the pros side as well, is that our proximity to Provo is relatively close. If you want to have some distance and have a slower pace of life, but be able to access some of the city type living things that you can get, we're only about a half an hour away. Payson is also known to be a very family-oriented community. Now, that doesn't mean you won't feel comfortable here if you don't have kids that are living at home or don't have kids at all, or if you're single or whatever. But there are a lot of events that are very fun to go to. My kids have competitive soccer that we play out here. There's community events and outdoor plays and groups and pickleball clubs and things like that, where we are considered a very family-friendly city. This is really a great community for anybody to come and live in if you think that these pros outweigh some of the cons.